This is the Wealthy Investor Show, where we don't just talk about your wealth, we also talk about your holistic health. I'm your host, Matias.
And I'm Erica.
And this is the Wealthy Investor.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Investor, guys. We weren't sure what to talk about today, but we got something juicy for you. Erica is a licensed therapist, right?
Yep.
That's your profession?
Am.
Yeah. And I am not. I have read self-help books, like mindset books, that kind of stuff. And so there comes times in our marriage, wonderful, beautiful marriage, where we disagree a little bit about certain things, or we have some spirited conversations. And so I think we wanted to have a little bit of that now. So specifically, I think that sometimes we shouldn't give ourselves excuses. We shouldn't give ourselves just love yourself unconditionally. Obviously, you want to love yourself, but my point would be that
You're off to a great start.
my point would be that loving yourself comes from taking action towards what your goals, your accomplishments that you want to get to. It all started from a video that I apparently misinterpreted, and where they were saying, the thing that I got hung up on was they were saying that accomplishments are an external thing, an external factor, and you shouldn't rely on accomplishments to have self-worth. And
Wait a second. First of all, that's not what the video is.
that's what I just said. Apparently I misunderstood it.
Okay, good.
And so I went on a bit of a rant and basically said that I think that's wrong. I think that really, if you're not feeling accomplished, you can. And basically, if you just set goals towards where you want to get to and you actively work towards them, and if you really break that stuff down onto a minute level and track it and achieve the things that you are setting out to do, that would bring about accomplishment, and that it would make you feel good because you're feeling accomplished. And that's an internal thing. So apparently I misunderstood the video.
Yeah, you did, because the video was a woman, first of all, talking about how
Let me mansplain this real quick to you, Erica. Okay.
it was a woman talking about how as women, we grow up in a society that everywhere it is blasted that we should look a certain way, that we should act a certain way, that certain behavior for women is unacceptable, how it can be hard for women to be assertive, especially in business settings that are male dominant, and how the more you can believe in yourself and let go of some of what society tells us is necessary, or what we have to be like, or how we have to look, if we can let go of that, we can experience freedom inside ourselves. We can really begin to love ourselves and then pursue whatever we're interested in, or whatever we want to be, or who we want to be. That was the video. And Matias had a response video that he was asking me if it would be appropriate to post, that just said,
It was supposed to be controversial.
Just
It was supposed to be controversial. It's just, this was like I'm
just
not actually
make your
going to.
goals and go for them, and you'll be happy.
Well,
And I said, you're gonna get married.
it was a post that I wasn't actually planning on posting because I knew it would be controversial, and I didn't know if I wanted to really. I intentionally said a message to women, and I knew that in doing so, I would get a lot of hate, which is attention that could get views and whatnot, but I don't know if I want that image. So I didn't post it.
I think what you're saying is true and important, but not alongside, like, it's two totally different messages.
Yeah, and I guess another part, I think one of the themes of the video as well, and correct me if I'd misinterpreted this as well, was that an assertive woman, that a woman that's powerful, that knows her worth, is not attractive or something like that, or is a burden or is a pain or something to that extent. And to me, like, I married you.
What?
What I'm trying to say is I am attracted to people that can, we've talked about this many times, that I view as you as a partner. I want your input. I want your like back and forth. I don't want you to be a subservient woman. I'm attracted to. And so I don't get that mindset that somebody that is assertive. I think there's men, I think there's women that when the way they handle themselves in an assertive way is a bit grating, but I don't see that as a gender thing. I think that's more just how you approach. And maybe more of a social skills. I don't see it as a gender. But again, I'm not a woman.
Mm-hmm.
having grown up
Do you
as a woman.
do you see how it sounds different if I would say the exact same thing you just said to me, if I would say that to you?
What do you mean?
That you being an assertive man is something that I find attractive. I don't want you to be a submissive man.
Yeah.
It's not language we use for men.
Yeah, I would say that there is society would expect that to be attractive, right? Is that what you're saying?
It would society, yes, society would put you front and center in the leadership role, generally speaking. And it takes extra. The post is just saying it takes a lot of extra work and energy for women to be in that role, whereas for men, mostly it's just you can step right in and it's there for you.
I mean, I think there's definitely, oh, yeah, sure. And I think
Yeah.
there's work to be, I think you have to work to become a good leader, no matter if you're a woman or a man. And I think there's a good way to be assertive. There's a good way to get a hone skills regardless, right?
I think what you're maybe saying and what I'm saying is like yes, you do have to hone leadership skills, and it's helpful if you can figure out what your goals are and work towards them, and mindset is everything, and you can take charge of your life. I think that's what you're saying, and I believe that. It's just men, and generally speaking, like gender-wise, men tend to start from here and women start a little bit lower, and so they have to work harder to what's the word, shed some of these societal pressures to be a certain way before they can really start to be in tune with who they really are, who we really are, and then begin to set goals and work towards those things and not be bothered by all of these other pieces.
That makes sense. So at what point do you think, is there the role of giving yourself excuses versus the role of giving yourself grace? Like, where's the line in that from whatever, for talking to women, talking to men, whatever? Do you think there is a role to give yourself grace? I know we've talked about this with the book, Keeping House and whatever, what's it called?
Keeping Health While Drowning.
Keeping House While Drowning. That book has a lot of grace, and their whole point about you need to have your house being functioning. And so sometimes if you're not functioning, you need to give yourself grace and make things easier until you can become functioning and do things the way you hope to do it. One of the examples would be like, even if you can't do dishes because you're just so overwhelmed as a parent, or however you are, if you're just depressed or whatever, that you should just use plastic silverware and plate and whatever until you are able to get to the point where you can do dishes. And the point is you need to be functional. So there's definitely a role in grace. Is my question making any?
Yeah, I think so. I think first you have to be able to acknowledge what's happening. It's important to me that you can acknowledge that there is a difference between you as a male and me as a female, if we would approach the same position. Or there's different societal pressures for me than there are for you. It doesn't excuse anything necessarily. It's just helpful to be aware of that, because
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
no, I know. But once you can acknowledge where you are, if there is a difference, or if you are drowning and you can't do the dishes, if you know where you are at your starting point, then you can figure out how much challenge you can give yourself to start moving forward without becoming paralyzed. Then you just can't function because it's too overwhelming. You have to know how much can I move forward at this point. And then once you move a bit, you might need to rest for a minute and give yourself a lot of grace before you can challenge yourself again and move forward. You see that with everything in life, wouldn't you say?
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's, so if you were to set out goals or whatever, the key there is to making them doable, making them goals that you can achieve. So if you set yourself up for failure by making the goals, if you're comparing yourself to some superhuman that gets up and runs 20 miles every morning, and then you set a similar goal, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So you need to set attainable goal for where you're at the moment.
Yeah. If I would acknowledge the difference, like for women, the harder part for women in life, and just succumb to it, then I might say I can't do anything, or I can't even make that goal because that might be too hard, or they might not want me, or they might not see me as somebody who can step into that position.
What's the point of trying because I'm a woman that I'm not going to be able to do it or whatever? If they're going to prefer him, whatever.
Yeah. So instead, it is building confidence to say, I can do this and I'm going to try. And it's okay if I fail. And even if I fail, it's not always because I'm a woman. It might just be because it didn't work that time. And then I'm going to try something new or different, but I'm going to keep working at it.
I've enjoyed this little conversation we've had. I think we're onto something here. Where I put my neck out, and you can address the hate mail to PO Box 321 in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Somebody probably lived there. Perhaps. But
Anyway, today let's shift gears a little bit. We talked to James Brown. James Brown is an investor out of the Colorado, Denver area. He has a really interesting, he does a lot of different things. He's an agent, but one of the main things that we talked about was his lease option strategy for investing in real estate, where he makes it a real win. I think oftentimes that has a bit of a dirty name where people think that the person renting the house, renting to own, is going to get screwed over. They're just set up to fail. But he has a very awesome program that really sets the people up to succeed. So that's super interesting. We got into the weeds on that a little bit. He also has fund to funds where he helps vet syndication deals for people who have money that don't necessarily have time to vet those deals. So that's interesting as well. He provides service there where he underwrites the deals a little bit more and has a big checklist that he goes through to make sure that the deal is a good deal for the investors that are investing through them. And you got into his backstory, which was pretty interesting.
Yeah, he was born and raised in Alaska, working on his father's commercial salmon fishing boat, and had some fun stories to tell about just his experiences in Alaska. And then he moved to Colorado, I think when he was 18, went to college there and has been there ever since. And so he loves the outdoors. We didn't get into that as much, but he has a lot of outdoor hobbies and has a lot of fun, it sounds like. He was fun to talk to. Hope you enjoy him.
Without further ado, here's James Brown. Welcome back, and we are here today with James Brown. James is out of just south of Denver, Colorado, and James has a really interesting investment strategy that maybe has a bit of a bad name to it. It's a lease-to-own, and he has a very unique strategy as to how he does it. So I'm really eager to get into that and get into the nitty-gritty details and how you make it a true win for everybody involved. But before that, do you want to get started and tell us a little bit about where you're from, what kind of got you into real estate?
Yeah. So I'm from Alaska originally, which always gets good reactions. It was a cool place to grow up. My parents were teachers, and my dad had the summers off, and he had a commercial salmon fishing boat. So
Wow.
grounded out and learned what hard work was on the boat. Had a lot of adventures. So
What part
that's
of Alaska?
Anchorage, the big city. So yeah, a lot of outdoor activities, hunting, fishing, skiing, snowboarding, snowmobiling, all that.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I've never been to Alaska. I'm sure you get a lot of people curious about that.
And Colorado is very similar. We just have more sunshine
Yeah.
and more people.
Yeah.
Right.
There was a TV show recently, you can help me on the name of it maybe, where it was like I don't know, it's like a police investigation, a TV show where they
True Detective.
fourth
yeah.
season.
Yeah.
It was based in Alaska, and
Yeah.
they had the 6 months of darkness. And that was really interesting to see, and I was curious if that was actually is that how it is? Is it actually 6 months?
Not in Anchorage. If you go up to Prudhoe Bay, like all the way north,
It's
there was
interesting.
actually a movie. Crap. It was like a vampire alien movie. I cannot think of it, but it was a good one
That
playing off
sounds
that.
interesting.
Yeah, Anchorage. So in the winter, it'll get light around 10 a.m. and then dark again around 3. It's not much light.
Very short days.
You get a little bit. So
A little
Yeah.
bit better than.
Yeah. Is seasonal depression higher there? Do they talk about that? I
oh
mean,
yeah, suicide,
Oh, man.
crime in Anchorage is super high.
Really?
Gun deaths higher than Chicago, which is always in the news.
Wow.
I did not know that.
That.
Yeah, like growing up, I don't know if it was as bad growing up, if it's gotten worse, or I just wasn't aware because I was a kid.
Mhm.
But
Is that correlated to the seasonal depression? Do people speculate that is part of the reason, or?
I would think that would be a huge factor. Yeah. Plus,
Yeah.
a lot of people have guns up there.
And what's the dare? Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you paint me a picture of just what life was like for you growing up there? What a day was like? What'd you do? How'd you spend your time? What'd you do when the sun went down?
A lot of time indoors, but I don't know. We would try to get out during the light, go hiking and cross country skiing. I played hockey growing up, of course.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So in the summers, then was it longer days? Was it like light a lot for a long time?
Oh yeah. 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 Have a campfire and it's still light at midnight. So yeah, summers are awesome. I go back every year, hang out with my folks, and just temperatures are nice and long days. So yeah, fill it up.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
like it.
bet.
Only downside is mosquitoes.
Really? You'd think like mosquitoes would be around humidity, but they hang out around up there, huh?
Oh, there's a lot of humidity.
Apparently,
like-
I need to go to Alaska.
Yeah. What is it? Minnesota's the land of 1,000 lakes or
Yeah.
10,000 lakes?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's 1,000,000 lakes. There's just so
Wow.
many.
That sounds beautiful.
I grew up in Anchorage, which is by the ocean, so it's humid.
Right. Right, and it would regulate the temperature then as well from the ocean.
Yeah, totally.
So, how old were you when you first started helping your dad on his salmon boat?
About 11.
What kind of
Oh.
jobs did you have at that point?
Before that?
No, with your dad. What did he have you do on the boat?
Oh, initially just a gopher. Like,
Mhm.
I actually never saw his first boat afloat, so he'd fly me out and I'd help get the boat ready. It was an old leaky wood boat, so it'd be
Okay.
in dry dock, and so I'd just be running around grabbing tools and stuff. Then on the boat itself, there's basically the captain and somebody that stacks the lead side of the seine and when that stacks the corks, and then you have a skiff man. And I don't know, I just run around helping wherever I could as a kid. And then first job was stacking corks. And then I moved on to running the skiff. I did that the rest all the way through college.
Wow, what does that? I have not really been on a boat. What does that mean? Running the skiff?
So basically, salmon seining,
Mhm.
also called purse seining. You have the big boat, and it's got the seine on the back deck. And then you have a skiff that's you drag around behind it. When you set out the seine, the skiff is attached to the end of the seine, and the big boat takes off, and the seine piles off the back, and so
Like
the
a
skiff
net?
and the big boat,
The seine is like a net.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
That's what catches the fish. So you basically say the fish are coming down the shoreline.
Yeah.
Either go in one direction or the other. So you
Mhm.
set it out, set like a J-shaped hook. So the fish come in, hit the seine, go out, hit the end of that hook and circle around. And then after maybe a half hour, you close the ends. And then the bottom of it got like a
Okay.
purse kind of thing that you cinch up. So it traps all the fish in the seine. And then you start bringing one end in and pile it back on the deck. So the
Wow.
skiff is just holding the seine open. And then while you're closing, the skiff kind of keeps the big boat from getting into the seine and getting the prop tangled up. That's high level of how that all works.
That's awesome. Wow.
How do you look back on those times on the boat?
Fondly, I like a lot of adventures, have sharks once in a while. We'd get weird stuff that come up, eels and octopus and dogfish and just random stuff. We'd go hunting and beach combing and stuff like that.
That's
Saw
cool.
bears on the beach. I've never seen one while I was on land, luckily.
Yeah, that would be scary for me.
Yeah, yeah. This is in Kodiak, Alaska. Kodiak brown bears. They're
Which are
big.
like immensely bigger than Colorado brown
Oh
bears.
yeah, we just have black bears here, and some of them can get big, but not like a brown bear.
But we have here
Same.
black bear.
Yeah.
I'm making me anxious thinking about it. Was that just you? I don't. Do you have siblings? Do you have brothers or
I have a
sisters?
brother,
that were
yeah.
on You?
Yeah, my brother worked on the boat too, so
Okay, cool.
yeah. He's in real estate as well now.
Is he still in Alaska or did he also move around somewhere?
He and his wife are realtors in Cleveland, where her family's from.
Okay, awesome.
If they say fishing is a gateway drug to real estate.
Yeah, okay, so how did you get into real estate? I'd love to hear what the process was.
Actually, I was a graphic designer for 25 plus years, and that it wasn't really getting me where I wanted. I was getting burnt out. So got serious. Approaching turning 50, I'm like, I gotta do something different. So I started learning about real estate through Bigger Pockets, which is based here in Denver, which is cool.
Right.
It took a few years to figure out which direction I wanted to go. And then eventually I was like, real estate took over my brain, like all the potential. So now I'm full time doing
Wow.
it.
When you moved to Denver, how old were you at that point?
18,
Around
right out
18.
of high school.
How-
I came here for college, and a lot of people came for college because mountains and
Yeah.
Right.
cool. Yeah. And then I just stayed.
Yeah, Denver's amazing. Every time we go to Colorado, we think seriously about moving there. Usually the whole flight home, we're researching houses and neighborhoods and things would be a great place to live, and then that's where it is.
I think
Denver's a great state.
the mountains really call to us.
It's just so fun. Yeah. Yeah. I was curious coming from Alaska to Denver, how long do you feel like it took you to build a sense of community or just to feel like it was home for you?
Pretty quickly, because like I went to school in Gunnison, Colorado, which is a small town, maybe 10,000. A lot of it's the school, great school. And so that felt like community like right away because it's so small. Even just walking around town, you're like, oh, few people I knew. When I moved to Denver, that was a culture shock because it's a lot bigger than Anchorage. And I just remember going out for walks and people wouldn't make eye contact with me. I'm like,
Oh,
"Oh, that's weird because I was used to that small town. You're going to run into people again. So that's more friendly. I didn't like that, but I don't know. I've been here a long time. Seems every time I go out somewhere, I run into somebody I know.
that's cool. What do you do now when you're on walks? Do you still greet people or have you adjusted?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm always like saying hi and making eye contact.
Yeah. It's funny. We hear that too about going north. That happens where
Yeah.
it seems like people are very focused on where they're going. They have a direction and a path and they're not going to divert from that. But around here, we're more south in Virginia and people are very friendly and wanting to talk about anything and everything all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go around calling each other sugar.
So when you got into real estate, did you have somebody that you were doing that with, or were you exploring that one on your own?
Yeah. Started out on my own, going to RIA events and studying and all that. But then eventually I went to, there's multiple locations called Badass Real Estate Investors. So
Cool.
So that's where I met my business partner, Toby Hansen.
Cool.
He was going to be on here, but had some internet issues. But yeah, he was in the same position where he was running ads and stuff, Facebook ads, Google, that kind of things for restaurants and real estate agent. And he's like in a similar position where he's about to turn 50. I got to get this together. And so we met and clicked, and
That's a pretty good
Work.
combo. The graphic design and the ads for prospecting wherever you're wanting to find. That's pretty good background for you guys to have.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's cool. And you've said this a couple of times. I was about to turn 50 and I got to get things together. What do you mean by that? What is happening?
What do you mean?
Like you had mentioned, we were about to turn 50. We wanted to pull something together or get something going. Was there something for you, that number, turning 50 was like a push for you?
Yeah. See my friends like with these careers and whatever about to retire. And I'm like, I have no retirement in my future. I wasn't saving up enough. I got some money in mutual funds and stuff, but that's not growing. and you have no control over that besides adding more. And I saw all the potential of real estate. We could dive into that, of course, but anybody on here probably realizes the power of real estate. I was like, okay, I need to get going.
Yeah.
I go back to, I think when I was in college, my dad's like, you should buy a duplex, live in one side, like basically house hacking.
Or
Do
it had
that. Huh?
before it had the name, right? Like people
Right.
were doing house hacking for a while before Braden or whoever coined it, house
Yeah,
hacking.
whoever coined it. Yeah. I didn't do that, but I was smart enough to buy a house with my brother here in Denver and was able to leverage that. And I ended up buying my own home in '06 before things went sideways.
Yep.
And I was like sitting there going, for years, I have no equity to play with.
Yeah.
Right.
And I struggled too because once things came around and I started getting into this, it's probably 2017 where I got serious, started studying. I'm like, I have equity in here. What do I do with it? Do I try to do a cash out refi or something and then go buy another primary and I call it nomad investing, where
Yeah.
you just leapfrog and keep them as rentals with those original primary home loans in place, low down, low interest rate. I struggled because the house itself was not in a great area. I fixed it up, babied it, but it was an old house. It was going to it needed peering, like foundation.
Okay.
There was a root in the sewer line. I knew about that. I had it scoped when I bought it, just ignored that. Figured if it came up, I'd deal with it. Old electrical. As a rental, I was like, yeah, this probably wouldn't be super solid. Be looking at a lot of CapEx. It was in a sketchy neighborhood that was getting worse. Even though people were coming in and buying and fixing places up, the crime was going up. Like I went to the neighborhood association meeting that last year and they're like, it's going up. I'm like, oh, that's not the trend I want. And I don't want to live there anymore. I had crappy neighbors too. I was like, I don't want to live there anymore. And I don't think I want renters in there. And even if I did get renters in, pretty soon they'd be like, wait, what was that? Did I hear a gunshot? Or
Right.
and they'd be okay, we're out of here. We're not going past our 1-year lease. Like, nah. So I sold it.
I think that's probably it can be a hard hurdle to get over for investors, people wanting to build up their portfolios, et cetera, is to let something go. I think that has not really been, so we're in an equity growth area as well, not like Denver. We're not appreciating quite as quickly, but I think that's probably something we're going to face at some point as well. Like, do we want to get money out of this or just sell it, get the most out of it that we can and move it into something that's maybe a little bit more cash flow intensive or a bigger asset, get the single family houses into the hotel model like Monopoly. So that could be a hard decision. It sounds like the right one.
Yeah. Yeah. And always in the back of my head, remember people saying, oh, I wish I would have kept every property I had. I'm like, am I making a mistake? There are situations where it makes more sense to sell it, especially like you're saying, as you're building equity in a place and it's locked up.
Yeah.
It's better to reuse that equity. Maybe that's selling it outright for cash out refi or something.
And what we're getting at is the return on equity. People don't always think about the return on equity. I think people often have the dream of paying off the house and just getting the straight cash flow, which there's nice things about it. But if you analyze it from a return on equity model, it doesn't do very well if you were to take that equity and put it into some more properties or another property and leverage either with a cash out refinance, like you said, or going ahead and selling it and just putting it into something else. You can get a much better return on equity.
Yeah. Oh, you nailed it. Yeah. A lot of people don't get that, especially older investors. It was just drilled into our heads. Pay off at least your primary house, right?
Yeah.
And there's benefits to that. But when it's a rental and you're not attached to it and you're thinking building wealth, that's a whole other story, right?
Yeah, we actually started off as Dave Ramsey. That's our financial journey. We were Dave Ramsey paying off all our debt kind of people. And so we had that very much ingrained in our first house that we kept and turned into a rental on a 15-year note. So very cash flow poor. And we're going to have to figure out what to do with that at some point because the return on equity is not great. But yeah,
Yep.
it's funny. There's definitely a balance, I think. I don't know if I want to go out and max out all my equity lines to buy more property necessarily and just be complete leveraged, but I think there's a good balance in between. If you're in a good area, you got good cash flow, etc. But like you said, you were in an area that weren't wanting to stick around with, so it makes a lot of sense. So good for you.
Yeah. I got plenty of stories about living there.
But I was going to just say that this kind of segues into the lease to own option thing. People often think like the lease to own, like if you're in an area that's hard to maybe get a normal tenant in, that maybe like where you were, if it was a more rough neighborhood, like you envision somebody who can't qualify for a traditional mortgage, may not even be able to get a traditional lease option. And so they get into this lease to own scenario where they maybe put a down payment down, and then the owner is basically sitting back and waiting for them to fail so that when they fail, they can recapture the property, keep the down payment they paid, keep the rent they paid. Well, can you tell me a little bit about how your model worked and why you're not really taking advantage of the people you're working with to win?
Yeah, the bad areas. Yeah, we try to stay out of those. Try to stay in like just good working class cookie cutter home neighborhoods where the crime's not high, but they're not like luxury, right? Just pretty
Sure.
much any home most people would want, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bath, metro area, near good schools, low crime.
What's the price point for that where you're at? What's like the median
Our
sales?
median, it depends on where you are, but
Sure.
between 580 and 630.
Oh, wow.
Basically, it's high.
Yeah.
So,
That's about almost double. We're 320 to 350 right here.
yeah, it's definitely harder to make it work and make it cash flow. But like you were saying, we have our appreciation. It's a hybrid of both. But yeah, to answer your question about like our model, setting people up for success so that they can get a loan in the future, that's the key. And not everybody does that. There's big companies and individuals that either unintentionally set people up for failure because they don't know how to vet them and set them up, or they intentionally do it
Right.
with the idea they're going to take back the house and keep their option fee.
Right.
I like to sleep and I like to help people. Got a group of other companies like ours growing around the nation. So like a network, and we all have the same mindset, set them up for success. And part of that's getting with a lender in the beginning. Most that fail are because they didn't have a plan. I know quite a bit about lending, but I don't know all the programs and all the intricacies. So I always like to have a lender taking a look and going, okay, here's why they can't qualify. Or maybe it's multiple things, and this is what they need to do. And here's the likelihood, and here's how long we think it's going to take them. So just knowing that and having everybody on the same page up front, that's the key.
So you need to find somebody that can't qualify for a mortgage right now, but has a clear path to be able to get qualified. What's that typically involve for one of your clients? Is it credit fixing? What's the typical?
Great question. So it's usually self-employed that are a good fit because banks don't like us, self-employed people. I'm self-employed. So they typically need 2 years income, tax returns. So those are ideal because they just need time. And the self-employed people usually have some kind of savings that they can put towards their option fee. So it's not anything wonky. Like you get into credit, we look at that and we don't have a minimum credit score or anything. We just look at the whole picture. Like, what is their source of income? What are they making? What is their credit score? Things like that.
Are there common industries that you find the self-employed people from, or is it all over the place as to what they're doing?
Yeah, it's all over. A lot more self-employed people these days. Contractors are a good example.
Right.
Here we have a lot of Hispanic contractors. So we've got somebody on our team, Anna, the gal that called earlier before the show started. She's fluent in both languages. So we're looking at trying to help somebody right now. They make good money They got some other things like citizenship stuff that we got to figure out too, but cash heavy companies, and they don't like banks.
Right.
Greater banks, it's a cultural thing. Like they're used to being wary of them. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I can totally see that. That makes sense. And we talked a little bit about the property that we've invested in. I have my partners from El Salvador, our partner from El Salvador on that deal. And so, yeah, he definitely works with that a lot and he understands the lending side as he's an agent as well. He understands the lending side probably better than a lot of lenders, maybe, because he has had to translate a ton for his client, the lender themselves or the title company or whoever does not speak Spanish. It's interesting how those cultural things can really impact negotiations. There's all sorts of hurdles with cultures that we have to get through and just part of it.
With the
Yeah.
citizenship piece you mentioned, is part of it too helping them connect to resources, immigration law, or lawyers that could help them with that process, or is that outside of what you all are involved in?
Yeah, we do. We help out however we can. That part of it's like outside my area of expertise, but like Anna, who's on our team,
Mhm.
she knows, and those clients usually know the path forward
Yeah.
too. So yeah. Like same with credit. I'm not a credit expert, so
Right.
if they need some help, I send them to a credit expert to help them figure that out. And most lenders that we work with, they can give some good advice. If it's
Mm.
real wonky or they need to like get some things removed, they need a credit specialist. Then we pass them on.
And how much, once you have finished the first part, they're in the house, how much follow-up do you do to make sure they're on track still to becoming owners, or do you just revisit it once the option is present?
Oh, good question. Yeah. Yeah, we do follow up. So minimum every 6 months. And these are we do between usually a 1 year minimum up to 10
Okay.
years. So most of the ones that we've done are 1 to 3 years. Most people can qualify, figure out whatever they need in that amount of time. I think we're going to
Sure.
start bumping that out 5, 10 years. Just give them plenty of time. So yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I had another question. I can't remember.
I had a question. I was curious, how long have you been doing this? I'm curious how long the longest deal that you've had, or you've been working with folks.
Yeah, like I said, most of them are 1 to 3 years. So we've had a handful complete, about half of them. So we've been in business since 2019, ourselves here in this market. And then our network, like my mentor who I work with, a lot of our deals have been joint venture deals with him in the Midwest. And he's been doing this over a decade. He was a lender first and then really liked the creative financing and
Yeah.
just getting into the weeds and helping people that he couldn't as a lender because they've got their checklist. And if somebody doesn't meet all of it, his hands are tied as a lender.
It really is seeing an opportunity. And I remember what I was going to say then. So you often will actually let the person pick their house that they want to buy on the MLS, correct?
Good question. We do it two ways. So we either find the buyer first, let them pick out a home on the MLS, and then we buy it for them. Or we go find those kind of cookie cutter ideal rent to own type homes, buy it, and then we go find a buyer,
You market that for that.
market it. We'll hit up we've got a pretty good database of people, and we don't require as much upfront when we have it property first. So it opens it up to a lot more people that weren't a fit for them picking out a house. So there's limited to that home that we've purchased. So we do it both ways.
Interesting.
Yeah.
If they are folks that pick out the house, are they involved in negotiations as you're coming to terms on a price?
Yeah, because like we get a snapshot of what it's going to cost everybody, but then you get into negotiations. We got to make sure everybody's on the same page. A little more complexity than one investor or primary home buyer doing those negotiations. So yeah,
So then, as far as the down payment goes, is that the option fee? Is that how you refer to it in this situation?
yeah, because it's non-refundable lease option consideration. technical term. That money can be applied towards down payment and closing costs, equity in the house, but it's not officially a down payment because there's no loan at that point. It's just an option for them to buy. But we give them 100% credit for whatever they pay.
So walk me through that. So you're buying the house. Let's say that's the MLS. The buyer picks something on the MLS model. You would be buying, you and your joint venture partners, whatever, would be buying the house, putting a 20% down payment on that house, because
Yeah,
it'd be your name on the mortgage. It wouldn't be theirs. So there couldn't be any kind of, it wouldn't be a primary residency.
Yeah, it's an investment. So yeah, minimum 20. Sometimes even if the minimum's 20, we might do 25 just so that the cash flow's better.
Right.
There's that teeter-totter, trying to figure out what's a good fit.
So it's really whatever loan option you can find as an investor that you would put it under. Does that then match what their option fee would be? Or what's the option fee then look like for the buyer or the leasee at that point?
Yeah. So it varies. Like we aim for 10% or more of the purchase price paid up front. That's I like that because that usually covers their down payment and closing costs. If they're getting like a 5% down conventional, or if they get an FHA, great.
On the back end.
Back end.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Skin in the game keeps them on the straight and narrow when they've got that much skin in the game. And it's insurance for us because it's non-refundable.
Right. So does that money then need to be held in escrow of some sort?
No.
That could be essentially offsetting your down payment and closing costs for the purchase.
Yeah. Yeah. So it goes through escrow when we close, like
Right.
they pay that. But it's not held in escrow.
Okay.
It's just, but it is documented and owed back to them.
Right. And then you would just basically be making a like their monthly payment would be a little bit higher than your mortgage payment kind of
Yep.
thing, like a typical. Okay. Then you had mentioned as well that there would be some factored in appreciation for the option at the end. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. We look at what the market's doing, where we see it going, and just try to make it so it's weighted a little more in favor of the buyer. So if the market goes up, good example, we had one. The buyer was actually this is a cool story. So the buyer was a real estate agent. He didn't have a full 2 years. Didn't get a loan. Picked out a duplex, lived in one side. And this was during COVID in the run up. So I don't remember what percentage appreciation we built in, but it was low. Minnesota's less than here. So say it was 5%, something like
Sure.
that. But the market went up
Right.
15, 20%. So he walked into 60 grand equity. So we set him up for that. We still did fine. We had our cash flow and our back end. And maybe if we had it as a regular rental and then sold it, sure, we might have made a lot more. But we helped him out. He became a homeowner. We made money. Everybody's happy. And then we can repeat.
So the only really the risk in this kind of scenario for the buyer would be if the market goes down for some reason. If there's a depreciation market, they would still be obligated at the whatever agreed upon appreciation at the end in the contract, correct?
Yeah. And that's a good reason to make those option periods longer.
Sure.
Give them full 10 years. We'll build in, like we've got one right now. Gal was going through divorce after we got her in the house with her husband. She's going through divorce and not doing what she needed to do to get her credit dialed in. And so we gave her an extra year. Hopefully she makes it. If not, we can just keep extending it. Or we can always, the last thing is we'd want to go through like a renegotiation, rather stick with the contract. That's the first thing, just extend it, let the market come back.
Yeah, I love that. It's very apparent that this is a system that is designed to help people and benefit from owning real estate over time. Like, it's great. I could imagine that, I don't know what that contract would look like, but somebody could maybe structure it in a way where they would assess what the value is when the option comes due to really capitalize on everything that is possible to take advantage of all the appreciation. But it's such a win. It's a really cool strategy.
Yeah. In the contract, it's got a date, and a purchase price agreed upon ahead of time, so everybody's on the same page. But yeah, market could change. I don't know of anybody that has done that where you reassess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just thinking out loud here, like that if somebody was really trying to maximize everything, all the appreciation from owning the property, that could be a route they try to explore, but not as favorable to the buyer in most scenarios, because most of the time we're certainly not looking at any depreciation with the inventory issues anytime soon, it seems.
Yeah.
I imagine that every interaction or contract that you set up is different. You have all kinds of different people coming in with a lot of their own story and just situations. I'm curious what the learning process was like for you as you got this started. It seems like it flows so smoothly now. And was that always the case? Or did you guys work out some kinks along the way? What was that like?
Yeah. Still learning. Definitely trying to wrap my head around it and all the scenarios too. So like to that point, like I've got somebody I mentioned earlier, Hispanic family wanting to do this. We can keep their payment low at the max of what they told me they could pay. Problem is, if we start low, got to look at the future, right? When they go get a loan without 25% down, let's say they do 3.5 or something, their payment is going to be way higher, like another $400 or $500 higher. If they can't afford that, that's setting them up for failure. So we have to calculate today's rate for them with our loan versus theirs. So sometimes that can be a big gap. Yeah. So those are the learnings along the way. Like, how do we figure this out? So I'm always trying to find that balance for the buyer and us. So everybody's
really
happy.
Keeping the end in mind and really setting them up for success. We always ask people what their favorite books are. Do you have any favorite books that come to mind that would be either real estate related or that would be just personal development or just a favorite book in general? Do you have any that comes to mind?
Oh, let's see. One as an agent that I like right now is The Full Fee Agent.
Okay.
It's based off Chris Voss's book.
Never Split the Difference.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yep.
based off. That is such an interesting book. All the concepts, the Never Split the Difference. It's really helped me create conversations that are powerful, especially when you're going through negotiation. There's a lot of factors. You crack the code on that.
That sounds really interesting. I've not heard that one before, so I'll check that out.
Yeah.
For sure. And I wanted to ask you too, you also have authored a couple of books.
Mhm.
And are those available on Amazon?
Yeah, I don't know if you can see in the background.
Yeah.
Colorado real estate investing strategies books. So it's just every year it comes out. So I've contributed the last 3 years. 4th one coming out here at some point. That's cool. It's curated, so it's multiple strategies from different investors.
Oh,
That's
cool.
cool.
I can't repeat every time, but things have shifted for me, and I add things and delete things and shift. So I'm always able to create some fresh stuff. I mentioned before we started shooting here, we're raising capital for multifamily, self-storage type syndications, like big projects, raising capital, both to help our investors diversify, single family, multifamily. Not everybody can do a single family like here in Colorado. You got to put down 25% on a $600,000 house. That's a big chunk. Plus you got to go get a loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are great, but not everybody can do that. If they can get into a syndication, 50,000 minimum, that's more attainable. A lot of people have that in their IRA, so they could use that.
Do do you mentioned a little bit about vetting the deals you get into and everything. What are some of the metrics you use to vet the apartment deal or whatever you guys are funding?
Oh yeah. Okay. So, the operators themselves, minimum 5 deals.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, that have gone full circle, where they've bought and then either refinanced and sold. Never had to do a capital call. That's happening even with some big syndicators that we see in the headlines. So that's ideally they've been through '08. That's a long time ago, but
Right.
been through some hardships. And then we have a 220-point due diligence checklist we go through. Once we see that seems like a good opportunity, then we go through that. We use third-party underwriting, 50 man hours, boots on the ground, looking at the property, all of that. For a layer of due diligence.
Oh, wow. So you underwrite on top of, I'm assuming these people are doing underwriting as well on their deals, but you underwrite it at the same time.
Yeah, the operator does it, but market come in, a passive investor, a doctor or somebody, like,
Yeah.
they don't know how to underwrite, maybe don't have the time. And we've got a team of people knowing the right questions to ask. And so that gives us confidence in sharing that with our investors, and gives the investors confidence that there's that extra layer.
Yeah, because if it was on the market, there's going to be what the agent has disclosed as the numbers, and then there's going to be the person that's buying having done the underwriting. And now you're saying you're doing another layer of underwriting to triple check more or less. That's pretty cool. Do you have typical targets for cash on cash or IRR?
Yeah, like pretty similar to our rent to own, 20%. I'm not really the numbers guy. Can't really quote all the things, but yeah.
I mean, everyone's going to be different too. There could be different plays with, IRR is a little bit, I don't know. I don't know if I love IRR.
There's all those different metrics, right?
But cool. Is there any place that people could reach out to work with you, or if they're interested in these strategies or these fun deals, is there a best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, hybridrealestateinvesting.com is like the one just for the rent to own. And I've got an FAQ video on there. It collected all these questions, and I just did a video answering the questions. So that's a good place if somebody's interested in that.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Especially coming in knowing essentially nothing about the process. That was helpful for me to see.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and then the syndication stuff, legacywealthcollective.com. That's the landing page for our private investor club. So syndications, they can either be 506C, which is only accredited. But if there's 506B, non-accredited investors, we have to have a relationship. So that's one reason we have the private investor club, so they can see stuff that we can't advertise. So yeah, and Accelerated Capital is our brand for the capital raising for those.
Okay. And we can definitely link that in the show notes as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on here. It was super interesting for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people that have not really explored what the full potential of lease to own, rent to own options would be. So yeah, thanks so much, James.
You're welcome. Yeah, great questions, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, good to get to know you guys a little bit. I'd like to have you on my show.
Great.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Investor Podcast, where we talk about wealth and holistic health. If you enjoy our content, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to hear new episodes every Thursday. If you really like our content, you can follow us on social media at The Wealthy Investor, wealthy spelled WELLTHY.